Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Dark Room, where two blind cinephiles illuminate the sighted. I'm Lee Pugsley,
I'm Alex Howard.
and this is a podcast hosted by two legally blind guys for film lovers of all abilities. And today we are going to take a slight deviation from our normal format because we had something really cool that Alex was able to be a part of, and we thought we would share that with you. Alex, I'll let you give a little more details on what we're going to do today.
So today we are going to be playing for you the Success Without Sight Summit interview that I did while I was at Sundance. It's hosted by our friend Kristen Smedley, and we will be playing that for you. We thought it had some relevant information about being low vision and also some relevant information about audio description.
Yeah, and I was able to jump in and watch the panel that Alex was a part of for this summit, and I thought there was some really insightful things that he had to say, and it was a really good conversation. So hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it, whether or not you're blind or sighted. Hopefully there can be some good takeaways for you as well. So here we go.
All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. It's Kristen Smedley, co-host of the Succeed Without Sight Summit and co-founder. I'm a co-everything. It's much more fun to do things with friends. Co-founder of Thriving Blind Academy that hosts the Succeed Without Sight Summit. Now, our summit main event all day is tomorrow. It is going to be super fun. And we have a special guest here tonight that we are doing Summit Eve. That's what we're calling it, to be professional and super fun with a nice branding to it. Really, it's just that the agenda for the summit got jam-packed, and our guest, his schedule is jam-packed. So we were like, that's the trouble with you Thrivers. Your schedules are very busy. If I was co-hosting the sit on your couch and have a great Saturday, we would have, much more ease with our schedule. But this is about folks that are out in the world thriving, doing all kinds of things in the world, and really living lives on your terms, not what other folks say that you should be doing. And that's where we want everybody to be moving to. So we're going to have a super fun time tonight. We are here with my new buddy, Alexander Howard, who is coming to us from a place, a thing, an event, an icon that I cannot wait for the day that I get to be there too, the Sundance Film Festival. Are you kidding me? How you doing tonight, Alexander?
Hey guys, I'm pretty good. I have my first official movie tonight. We had a volunteer screening a couple nights ago, but like my first festival event is tonight, so I'm excited.
Wow. So catch everybody up, or let's just start at probably in the middle, and then we'll go back and forward and have a good time. What is it that you're doing out there at the festival?
Well, I came last year with a friend. For those who don't know, I mean, I'm legally blind, but I couldn't have done this last year on my own. I mean, I'm struggling to do it this year on my own, to be honest. But like, they have a companion pass where if you need someone to be with you because you have a disability, you can get that. So my friend Jamie went with me last year, and we did a whole, trying to do test out audio description, test out captions. It wasn't on any official capacity. It was just like, let's just see how all this stuff works. And that was super, super fun. That was my first. I guess I did the virtual Sundance 2020, but last year was my first in person. And then this year I was so determined to come back. And so I actually ended up volunteering in the accessibility department of Sundance. So now I'm on the other side of stuff. Whereas last year I was contacting this department, telling them what was wrong. Now I'm answering all the requests. People request accommodations with, wheelchairs, or people break their leg on the slopes, or whatever it may be, captions, whatever it is. Marlene Matlin has a thing here, so there's a big deaf population here right now. So we're just trying to implement all the accommodations that everyone has and all the different screenings that's going on. So honestly, I can't even remember what movie I'm seeing tomorrow night because I've dealt with all these different titles for all these different people today. But no, it's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to be here in a volunteer capacity too. It's different, but it's a lot. It's a different perspective, and I really appreciate it.
So let's talk about this. Are you in the accessibility space? Are you in filmmaking? How did you get to this point to be doing all of that at this mega film festival?
So I am an accessibility consultant, specifically for low vision and blind people because that's my perspective. But I kind of did this also as an education sort of thing, so I can see what other people need of other abilities that go to events, that go to films. And I mean, I've grown up and loving films my whole life, and so I always wanted to work in the film industry. But I think finding the accessibility department and finding that the blind perspective is kind of missing from the whole film industry. I feel like me trying to give that perspective has really guided my journey since 2020, I think. So I feel like I've really found my place in the industry between audio description, and I love movie theater going. So I'm really trying to advocate for proper use of devices in audio description movie theaters. There's a lot of change that needs to be made. So I'm really trying to empower different companies that they need to make this change and that it's a positive thing. So my time at Sundance this year, I'm kind of using it as a learning opportunity to learn what other people with other disabilities need and kind of take that into account when I consult with different companies as well.
This is really incredible for me, Alexander, because we were just talking in Thriving Blind Academy. So, Thriving Blind Academy that puts on this summit, we're in an online, for right now, virtual community. And every Monday and the first Saturday, we have mentorship calls where we work through the Thriver formula and stuff like that. And as you can imagine, on Monday, for Martin Luther King Day of Service, we talked about service. And one of the pillars at the Academy, we have parenting, transition to the workforce. We have all these different pillars. But one of the biggest ones that no one seems to have, I saw it as a missing piece in raising my two blind sons, is service, right? So we were talking about it's not even expectation at Thriving Blind Academy. It is just ingrained in folks that when you come through our programs, we're then saying, okay, now not only are you going out in the workforce or chasing the life that you want, what are you doing to be of service to your community? Whereas typically people will say, oh, blind or visually impaired, you will be served by the community. So you have no idea how much all of my neurons are firing that you're not just at festivals like I am and in the industry saying, because I'm creating a film now. I did a short film, kind of like a statement to say, look, we made this with audio description. We did this, everyone in the film is blind or visually impaired, to make a statement of this is what we expect and demand. You're actually there making sure it happens as opposed to saying, I want this, I need this, and you need to do it. You're just making sure for all the communities. And that, I think, is why it didn't dawn on me when we first were chatting on LinkedIn. And then as I was hearing more about what you were doing, I think that was the piece that I was like, oh my gosh, you need to come in and talk with our group, because that's the vibe that I don't experience a lot in this community, and we want to 10x that vibe. Would you agree that it's not really there that much?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we definitely all need certain things. And I think, I mean, there are different personalities for different types of people. I've definitely, as I've grown up, become much more outspoken. And when something's wrong, I like to speak up and tell them it's wrong instead of just, I mean, there are times when I'm like, I don't want to complain, but I feel like I'm definitely not a complacent person when something's wrong. And so, and so definitely like with the theater I go to, the movie theater I go to, it's very much they're on top of accessibility. I mean, starting in 2025, my first two times at that theater, they messed up, which was very rare.
Hmm.
But beyond that, like they are the most popular AMC in the country. So they see all kinds of people and they're used to accessibility. But I know that's not that way everywhere. So like I'm not only trying to obviously improve the entire movie going system for myself, but I think for the blind community, it's super important that I mean, I love the movie going experience and I think
Mhm.
it's very communal, laughing with people, gasping at horror, which is my favorite genre. The Substance this year was like my favorite movie experience was watching that for the second time and knowing what was coming and hearing people react who didn't know, and it was amazing. And so like having that experience that like, a lot of blind people who the theater in their town, maybe they're not good at accessibility or it's hard for them to get out. And obviously being blind is very isolating too. Is, if you can't see very well, you don't know who's in the room, you don't know a lot of things going on. And so having that experience of being in a packed theater with people and hearing people laugh and hearing people cry and all these things, I think it's really important. And so I think I'm just trying to extend to other blind people the same joy that I get from going to the movies, and that way we can have a conversation about going to the movies and have a conversation about good AD. And me and my co-host on my podcast, The Dark Room, we talk about movies all the time in that capacity, but I'd love to extend that conversation to many more blind people than just us two.
Yeah, I love it. I mentioned that I have two blind sons and I have a sighted daughter. And actually, my oldest, he's going to be in the summit tomorrow talking about the meta glasses that he got for Christmas, and he like literally doesn't take them off his face. But when they were young, so when I grew up, of course, we didn't have all the apps and all the bazillion channels. We had, I'm in Philly, 3, 6, 10, 29. That was what we had. And then we got cable, and it was like, oh my God, $10 a month, and there was no, parents were like, we're not spending money for cable, except for the sports. I think that's why I grew up such a sports addict. But I loved, my whole family would go to the movie theater together. It
Mhm.
was such an experience. I mean, I saw all the original Star Wars, all the Indiana Jones, right? Like all of those super cool. And I mean, my father is a phenomenal storyteller. He's one of the best storytellers I have ever met. So I grew up with him telling stories. Then I grew up in the theater, in the movie theater, watching the iconic, best stories of all time. So then I have two blind sons, and I thought, I guess film is out of no pun intended, out of the picture for me, right? And then I guess because I have such a big family and movies were just such a big part of our family. My oldest son loved going to the movies, and it would drive me crazy that we had to, sometimes I would see the film first so that I could be able to sit there and tell him all the things and in real time and all that kind of stuff, trying to keep up. And then they came out with audio description, which when that first came on the scene, at least for us, it was my younger son couldn't stand it. He didn't want to go to the movies because the describer would talk over a character speaking. Like it was just very cumbersome. But my older son was just so happy to have some access to the film. And I asked one time I am so old, in a listserv where a lot of people probably don't even know what that is anymore, an email group before we had Facebook, right? We had to talk through email. And I asked this huge group of blind adults their thoughts on, is there something else I could do for my boys at the movie theater? And this one man was so mean. And he was like, why are you forcing your blind sons to go to the movies? And I was like, well, wait a minute. One of my sons loves it. He loves the whole, like you're saying, the experience. And he loves to do things with groups of people too. Everything that you said, that's my Michael too. He loves that experience together. Mitch is like, he has no patience if he can't access something or if somebody's making a noise next to him, right? They are just so different. So I'm like, well, I have two very different sons and one really enjoys it. So what am I supposed to do now? Right? He was very apologetic. And he's like, oh, I forgot that people that are blind are different, just like snowflakes. And I'm like, I'm never speaking to you again. You're annoying me. But it was when audio description got really good that then Mitch really enjoyed doing the movie theater experience as well. And because he could fully access it. Now, I believe that you're involved in, or maybe how about if you explain to folks what audio description is for people that don't? It's always surprising to me. People outside our community have no idea of our inside terms.
Yeah, so audio description is like a narrative track, a secondary track that you can turn on and off on shows, like if you go into languages. And it's basically a narrative track that talks in between lines of dialogue. So it'll be like Alex picks up his water bottle in between us talking so that the viewer knows what's going on. And for me, I mean, it's really important for anyone, but like I have enough sight where like I can tell when I'm missing something, when something
Hmm.
happens, like they hand something off or they show a text on screen, and I'm like, I don't know what that was. And so there's a big like disconnect. The whole point of AD is to give the blind audience the same experience that a sighted audience would have. So, for example, I'm sorry, Deadpool and Wolverine came out 6 months ago. So if you haven't seen it by now, I'll know that you're going to see it. But like Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a scene where they say Steve Rogers takes down his hood. And then my friend whispered over to me, oh, I bet that's Human Torch. And I was like, no, that's not Human Torch. That's Steve Rogers because the AD said that. And then he flies up with flame. And I was like, oh my God, that was Human Torch. And so that's that shock factor. You're like, I want to be surprised like everybody else. So then I went and saw it again and they said, someone who appears to be Steve Rogers. So like in the moment you're like, oh, that's him, and then it's not him. And so we want those shocks just like everyone else. Like horror should be disgusting AD, comedy should be funny AD, it's like give us the same experience that everyone else. So that's the whole point of audio description is to give blind people a similar experience.
Oh, this is what I love about this community and folks like you coming and chatting with me because I just learned something. And I don't know after 25 years of raising successful blind kids and all the different things that we've done. Sometimes I don't know why I haven't done things haven't dawned on me. I didn't realize, maybe because I'm on this stupid app so much with the voiceover that talks the text for you. I didn't realize that the audio description, if it's funny, the audio describer is funny. If it's scary, then they're scary. That's how they do that. I thought it was
So
just a
like they're not funny like themselves, but the language should be like describing the slapstick humor or for example in The Substance like the describing the grotesque like go if it's R, make it R rated language. If it's PG language, but like
yeah.
don't baby us with what we're watching because assume that we're the proper age to be watching this movie. So, yeah, I think that's my biggest thing is give us the same experience everyone else would have. Last year I saw Thelma at Sundance and everyone loves that movie. And I don't know if they've changed the AD track, maybe they did, but it's a very physically comedic movie. It's June Squibb basically chasing down a thief the whole movie. So, and it's like Mission Impossible spoof. So it's very much physical comedy. And I don't think they described the physical comedy very well because there were moments where everyone was laughing in this giant auditorium and I didn't know what they were laughing at. So it gives you this like sense of like, I don't belong here. Like, I'm at Sundance, but this is such a cool thing, but like I'm not getting what everyone else is getting. So like, why am I here? And it's like all like imposter syndrome almost. And so
Yeah.
when it's not good, like that's the experience that you get. And even like if you're watching at home, if your friend brings up, oh, remember when she fell down? You're like, I didn't know she fell down. So yeah, I'm advocating for proper like equipment use, but also, good audio description tracks too.
Wow, that is you've got my brain really going now as we haven't gotten to the point in production for audio description on my baseball film that I mean we're just in the screenplay was just finished and now we're fundraising and looking at crew and actors and stuff. But that's interesting to and see this is also why and this is an important point for folks that are watching and I want to ask the community that's here a question in a second. But it's an important point to have people involved in the creation and production, right? From the
Mhm.
beginning. Like my son Michael has been involved in the film. I mean, it's about his life and me too. But also he's on there as a creative director of making sure that these kinds of things, that audio description is really giving what is actually happening. And I know from my boys, they like when they get, and actually Michael's friends he's a Penn Stater. He graduated, but they all, when he comes home, it's never just him. There's always more Penn Staters that come with him. I always have kids on like air mattresses and all, and they take over my living room. But they watch movies here. All of his friends are sighted, but they watch them with that audio description track because Michael needs that. But they love it too now because they'll get information from that either they didn't catch visually or just like you were talking about, like, the surprise factor. But it's important to have someone or someone's on the teams putting these things together from the beginning so that there aren't those, oh, now I feel like this wasn't even, I was an afterthought.
Yeah. It's like there's a saying we say, nothing about us without us. So if it's about blind people or deaf people, like include them in their perspective, because how do you know what's right if you're not, getting their perspective?
Yeah, I mean, well, even putting Thriving Blind Academy together. I mean, Charlie is a visually impaired adult, right? We're only a few years apart, and he has kids too, and he has this whole life. But his experience, an adult with vision loss and having vision loss almost their whole life, even though I have two blind sons, I cannot relate to that experience at all. I can relate to a parent that is sighted having visually impaired kids. That's my experience. So there's no way I could build a whole community and do all of this and projects and programs and all the things from the perspective I have, it's not, it doesn't relate. I mean, I can certainly hang out, and know a lot of things, but I don't have that unique experience. And quite frankly, and I say this all over the place now, especially with as I'm watching this film and other films out there and being truly inclusive, having people that with that lived experience in a program or a production that you're putting together really gives that end project an advantage over all the other ones. And I see that in the workforce. I see it in these productions. It just has an advantage that other ones don't. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you include us, yeah, I definitely see the same thing that you're talking about. And I also think I know my parents are watching, but I'd be curious to talk to your son too, because I would bet that he's not fully blind, right? Or is he?
He is.
He is okay. So maybe it is a little different for him. But for me, there are curves I can see sometimes, and then there are curves I can't see other times. So like I won't correct my mom or my dad or whoever I'm with when they tell me there's a curve coming. If I can see it, I won't tell them because then the next one I know if the lighting's different or whatever, I'm not gonna be able to see it. So like just because you've dealt with one legally blind person doesn't mean you dealt with all of them because we all see
Yeah.
very, very differently from each other.
Yeah. And unfortunately, and if your parents are watching, then they can feel my pain. I don't know why all children that come from the same people can't be the same.
Hmm.
I mean, all of my kids are very different, but Michael and Mitchell, I think everyone, they're 3.5 years apart. They have the same blindness. Mitchell has a little bit, he has a little sliver of vision that is wonderful in some regards and drives me and him crazy in other regards because there's times that he thinks like you're saying if the lighting or something where he can typically rely on that and then he can't, that's frustrating, whereas Michael's like psh, it's just he had it, it's gone, whatever. But they are so everyone expects almost like a Michael Jr. to walk through the door when Mitchell comes through and I'm like oh boy, you're
Yeah.
no, Michael was born with a beautiful filter in what he talks, before he speaks. Mitch, nah, he doesn't have that gene. He's just going to tell you what is right on his mind. They're very different. So they're even the retina specialist one time up in Massachusetts was like, Kristen, they're different down to their retinas.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and one loved going to the movies, one didn't, and now they do both love it. And I will say the little short film I did to try to like dip my toe into this whole thing. I did it with a group of people. When I premiered it here in my town, they had created it with it was actually our mutual friend Michelle Spitz. She said, oh by the way, she said hi and have a good time.
Oh yeah.
She the group that edited and put the whole thing together, the first one that they sent to us after it was all edited, like for our approval, didn't have the audio description. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how in the 7 months that I have been emailing with you and everything did you forget to put that in? And they're like, oh, we're creating two different versions. That didn't even dawn on me that it would be, but it was a sighted crew that did all of that, right? It
Mhm.
didn't dawn on me to use it in two different, and I said, I don't want the one with no audio description. Like everything I'm using this 18-minute film for is about inclusion. Why would I, so anyway, I premiered it here in my town. It was, I guess, the entire audience at the theater is all my sighted community. And Mitch was the MC, and then we had a panel of people that are blind and low vision, and that they were the only ones there. And it didn't even dawn on me to tell the audience, by the way, this has audio description before we showed the film. And I was like, oh my God, they are probably like, why is there a narrator telling me what I'm seeing? Do you know
Yeah.
what's funny? Afterwards, when we had the panel and a whole really cool conversation, I was like, by the way, I totally forgot to tell you, that was audio description. Almost every single one of them in the after party told me that they didn't realize that that was something for the blind. They thought it was just enhancing the film for them experiencing it so they didn't miss anything.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, then maybe every film should just have it and stop having this. Do they have the track or not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know they do like open caption screenings at AMC's, and I think they do it at some other places. And I'm trying to get them to do open accessibility screenings. But I know, like, for some people, if, they're neurodivergent or they're ADHD, having too much
Yeah.
audio and captions and everything, it's like too much for them. So I know, like, for some people, it's not great, but to have that option at least, like to have an open AD screening or, have it on your phone or in a device you can get, like, it should be there for everything. And we're not quite there yet, but I mean, hopefully soon we'll get to the point where it's not even a question. I mean, there are some movies here this year that I'm surprised don't have audio description that I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go because I want to see the Q&A. Like tonight, I'm going to a movie with Dave Franco and Stephen Yoon, and there's no AD, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go for the Q&A and hope that. And a lot of Sundance films are like dialogue driven, so I'm like, maybe
Mm.
I'll be fine. But I usually don't do that. Usually, if it doesn't have AD, I don't even give it the time of day. But there were just some at this festival where I'm like, I want to see this person answer questions, so I'm gonna go for that.
Let me ask you this. For a film that has audio description, does the trailer have it too?
So Disney does it, Apple does it, and I think that's it. There are some, and usually it's like only on Disney Plus it'll have it, or only on, Apple TV Plus it'll have the description. But most
Mm.
companies, no, they don't do it with trailers.
Wow. Okay, that has me thinking to make sure. I'm just thinking, I'm like taking mental notes as we're in production. I don't want to come back 7 months later and say, "Oh my God, now you got to think about getting that in the trailer. It just needs to be in there from
Mhm.
beginning to end." Interesting. What is so you're talking about the things that you're doing tonight. What's your schedule like tomorrow? What do you get to do there tomorrow?
I'm seeing my first, well, the volunteer screening I went to that had audio descriptions. That was cool. Um, but the first Sundance film with the, audience with AD is tomorrow afternoon. It's a movie called The Ballad of Wallace Island with Carey Mulligan.
Hmm.
And then I think there's another one tomorrow night that I'm going to with AD about, it's like a midnight movie, which is the horror section of Sundance. But, it since this is like the first step in movie distribution, like they premiere it here, and then a lot of times they'll get bought, and then it'll go to the regular theater. I mean, I have no doubt that the movies I'm seeing that I'm excited for without AD will get it when it goes to theaters. I mean, hopefully, I know one of them is A24, so that will for sure have it. But if they get big distribution, they will have it eventually. So it's not like if it's not at Sundance with AD, it won't have it. So that's good. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to balance between like there's one movie that they have that sounds so up my alley about a woman who switches places with a chair. It's like a Freaky Friday, and I'm like, what is this? I need to go see this. There's no AD, but I'm like, I need to check out what this is. And so I'm going to that. But like most of it, I'm like, if there's a movie with AD at the same time, I'm gonna prioritize that one over
Yeah.
some.
I know that this is going to be on a lot of people's minds that are either in the room now listening or watching this later. You're talking about Sundance Film Festival, right? So I know people have a visual in their minds, and you're talking about hopping from, oh, I might do this one or I might do that one, I'm not sure. And I'm doing this tonight, I'm meeting these people. And you've also talked about your vision or lack of vision, right? Especially in different lighting and all that. So I know that the question that so many people are thinking is how? How are you managing all of that?
It does make it a lot easier that I was here last year, so I know the venues pretty well already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, the volunteers wear, it's over there in my volunteer coat, but they wear these bright colors, so it's easy to find. I mean, I'm going to be wearing it too, though, so I got to be careful. People are going to come up to me at screenings asking questions. I'm gonna be like, I don't know, but it's easy to find them. But I think it's also navigating here is difficult. Like I have my Airbnb. There's a building across the way there. My first day here, I got in at night. And then when I had work the next day and then came to my Airbnb, it was daytime, so the lighting was different. And they dropped me off at this building and my fab didn't work. And I was like, where am I? I don't know. I know I'm in like the vicinity because it was the same like sensor, but I have no clue where I am. And so I actually called my mom and I was like, can you look at a map? Like, is there a map online? Because I can't zoom in on my phone. And it's like 5 degrees outside and I'm from LA, so I'm like, this is freaking cold. And so like and then a van drove up with a guy and I was just like, hey, do you know where this building is? She was like, oh, I'm going there, come with me. So like those things just like happen where if I need something, something will happen, especially with my cane out. People are very, very willing to help. But it is really difficult to navigate all of that. And honestly, back to what you were saying about like things changing.
Mhm.
Usually at Sundance, if you come as a patron, you have your set schedule. But because I'm a volunteer, all my tickets are waitlist. And so I'm there's a volunteer waitlist line, so it's pretty much guaranteed I'll get in as long as there's not like 20 volunteers trying to go. But that's why it's kind of like, okay, am I actually going to get into this movie? And then it's like my schedule is very flexible. So that's why I keep saying might get to this. Because a lot of the time it's like if I'm working and the movie starts an hour after I get off, you're technically supposed to be there an hour before. So I'm like, how many people are going to be in line when I get there? It's kind of a gamble.
Yeah. Well, this is what I love about everything that you're saying. And we're going to really dive into all of this tomorrow in the summit with the Thriver formula. That's what this organization is built on, and it's essentially for folks that know the K to 12 school system, the ECC, the expanded core curriculum. There's all those skills that aren't academic, that we teach kids growing up with vision loss, like independence, right, advocacy, all that kind of stuff.
You have to be
It's
really like what do you call it? Like willing to change with like what you're doing. Like really, I don't know what you would call that, but like adaptable. You have to be very
yes,
adaptable. Like have
yes.
adaptability because you're expecting one thing, and then if that thing's not there, you're like someone moved it or where did it go? You have to like troubleshoot a lot.
Exactly. That's why it's the ECC and Success Principles by Jack Canfield, because my co-founder and co-host tomorrow is a Success Principles trainer. He was actually featured in Jack Canfield's Success Principles book. We merged the two for this Thriver formula because it incorporates all of that. And what I want folks to be hearing as we're talking about this, I don't want parents panicking that you're, doing all this and then you get there and it's dark and all of that. First of all, what I see from this entire community and everyone that has had success is it's like failure after failure after failure. You learn, you learn, you learn, and the passion is there. The interest and the passion is there. So you're going to figure it out. That's what I've witnessed with my boys. When the passion, I mean, Michael lives in Florida. He works for Disney. I just was with him. I was like, could you please ask them if you can have a sighted guide? Because I got to go to Lidditz, Pennsylvania for they have the big conference for all the sound, the crew for major concerts.
Hmm.
I was in line next to the guy from Metallica that like runs their band, right, for the shows and everything, like those kinds of things. Michael's at that conference, and I'm like, ask them if you can have a sighted guide so I can go. He figured it the same
Yeah, yeah.
thing. It was the same thing. It was like -2 degrees, right? And he was like, I don't care. I thought I was going to die. It was so cold. But the point is that when you have the interest and the passion and it's your dream that you're
Mhm.
following, not us wonderful parents that decide that we're going to put our dreams on our kids. I know you all, we do it in love. I got you. I did it too. But when you have that passion and interest and dream and pursuit, you're not going to stop. You figure it out. Then, like you said, oh, now something's in the way. I'm going to problem solve to get around that. And sometimes, oh, believe me, Michael's been in airports and he calls me because it's too long to get on it when he's running to a plane, waiting for like Be My Eyes or Ira.
Mhm.
He's just like, Mom, tell me what I'm seeing as he's running through the
Well, even
airport.
like Be My Eyes in my situation, like that wouldn't help me because like they don't know what building I'm going. It's like, you really have to think like, okay, who can I call right now or who and I think the cane really helps with people are so nice and so willing to help. Like when I went to TIFF, I got lost at TIFF, which is Toronto International Film Festival, like a different country, and I was kind of panicked and this woman, she was walking the opposite way and she was like, "Oh, I'll walk you to where you need to go." And she turned, it was like she walked me all the way back to my hotel. And I was like, people, I mean, I don't know if that's just Canadians, but people are really nice most places.
Well, I have to tell you, my Mitchell has not really embraced the cane. He needs it and he used it, but he memorizes places so fast.
Hmm.
And I was nervous for him at college that I literally, all of us parents are afraid that our kids are going to be dead in a ditch when they go without us somewhere, right? Let alone someone that doesn't use his cane correctly. And by the time I picked him up for Thanksgiving, I'm always saying, "Are you using your cane?" And he goes, "Oh, mom, that thing's with me all the time." And I said, "Oh my God, you're finally embracing the tools." And he goes, "No, mom, it's a chick magnet." And I
It's
go,
a conversation starter for sure. Because like when I go to events, I'll have to ask someone for help, which means most of the events I go to are people in the industry. So then they're like, follow me. And then it's naturally like, so what do you do? And they're like, oh, I work at NBC or I work at, you know, Disney. And then I'm like, oh, really? Well, this is about
"Is
me.
that
What do you
so?"
do? And like normally, if you're just a sighted person, it's probably weird to be walking next to a stranger, and be like, so what do you do, man? But like if they're helping me out, like yeah, it's definitely a conversation starter.
Exactly. It's interesting that you say that because Michael and Mitchell meet everyone wherever they go because of that, and they've learned to be like that. Like, look, if I'm walking with you and touching your elbow, we're gonna have a conversation
Yeah.
and get to know each
Yeah,
other a
you're
little
taking me to
bit.
an after party or something. Like we're yeah. I got invited to a Universal after party at TIFF because I met a woman because she was directing me to where I needed to go. And I was like,
Oh,
wow.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Were you always, advocating, asking for help and embracing all the tools? Were you like
No.
that your whole life?
No. So 2020, I think I really started identifying as like I am legally blind. I used to hate audio description. I thought it was annoying. And
Mhm.
then now I don't watch anything without it pretty much. And then same with the cane. I used to be so self-conscious about the cane. I was like, people are looking at me. I couldn't see them looking, but I could feel it. And um, my doctor was like, it usually takes about 2 years for people to really embrace the cane. And he
Hmm.
was definitely right. Because yeah, after a bit, I think you start to learn that you'd rather be looked at as a blind guy like doing what he needs to do. Like that's what people look at me as.
Yeah.
But before it was like, is this guy drunk? What's wrong with him? Because you're like feeling for the
Yeah.
door handle. You're doing things that people think you're like, that's the assumption that you're drunk. And it's,
Yeah.
if you have the cane with you, it's like, oh, that's why. It's an explainer. We shouldn't need an explainer, but I think it does help just with society viewing us. This guy, I think yesterday, he was like, good for you for being out here and, doing Sundance. And I was like, are most people just at home doing nothing? Like, that's great that he made that comment, but I was like, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing just because I'm visually impaired.
I'm curious, and I am one of those people that ask 10,000 questions. And we might not have an answer for this now, but you do have me thinking I'm going to be listening with another set of ears tomorrow and thinking about this. I'm wondering if, because I'm thinking about Michael and Mitchell and all the folks I know that do use a cane and are out there in the world and kind of attract these cool vibe people. I mean, the most interesting people my kids have gotten to meet. I wonder if it's you get to a level of comfort with yourself and the tool, and it's what you're putting out there, comfortable, cool, it is what it is, it's no big deal, that's why you're bringing those people to you. I wonder if there's an element of that to it where your comfort level is the vibe that you're putting off. I don't
It's
know.
funny. Like, I
About
don't
that.
think of myself as confident. I guess I am. I never really like, I mean, obviously we're all still working through our own vision journey, but no,
Yeah.
I think, right. Like no one at AMC, I've been there hundreds of probably 200 times since they got the new devices. And I'm there literally 2 or 3 times a week. No one has ever stopped and been like, how do you watch movies? Like, I would love for that to happen. Like, I walk with my cane prominently. Like, I want people to ask me questions because, like, I bet people are wondering, how does this guy watch movies? But I think you're right. Like, I actually made a friend, a movie group that I started going to the movies with now because I used to go by myself pretty frequently. And I went to see a Nora, and this guy came up to me after. He was like, "Hey, I just want to apologize. You walked by, and as you were walking by, I was yelling at my friend saying blind, blind because he was showing me a trailer and I didn't want to see it. And I wanted to let you know I wasn't yelling at you." And I was like, "Oh, like I didn't even hear you." And then I was like, this guy's probably really nice because he felt the need to come up and apologize to me. So I was like, "Do you guys come often?" He was like, "Yeah, we come every week." And then I was like, "Do you guys want another person?" So now I go with them to the movies. It's like it's crazy that you meet these people and then, it's almost like a filter of who's nice and cool and, willing to help you, and then you kind of attach to them.
Man, I didn't even expect to get this out of our conversation, Alex, that you're really, I know because I talk to the folks and I'm in the Facebook groups and all of that. There are so many people struggling that they feel isolated and they feel like they can't have a social life and then they don't know how to go get one. And you just so wonderfully talked about, you don't necessarily have to be scheduling and standing there. I need someone to, it just happens. You're out there doing your thing. And like I said, you've got that vibe that is cool and relaxed and you're finding the people. That's
And
good
that
stuff.
guy actually, he lives 5 minutes from my house. I mean, it's great to have his company, but also like he picks me up for the movies too. Like I feel like if you put yourself out there, good things will happen for you. But no, anytime you want to have us back, I mean, I'm sure I can speak for Lee. We would love to come back, and anytime we can encourage other blind people to follow their dreams, and especially in entertainment, but doing anything, we love doing that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And we can wrap up on there.
I hope you guys found the summit educational. It was a lot of fun doing the interview. And since that was the second day at Sundance, in terms of advocating for myself, which I know I talked about in the summit interview, there was another funny story that happened to me while I was at Sundance. Like I mentioned, there was the part where I got dropped off at the wrong building. And then a few days later, I ordered some groceries and they said they were delivered, and I did not know where they were because they were not at my door. So I had to go out. This was at night in the snow and try and find them. And I could not find them. And I was so stressed out because it was my breakfast and lunch for the next day. And there was a car that pulled up in the parking lot across the street, and I flagged them down and they helped me find my groceries. It was in some building I had never been to before, and they ended up being actors in one of the movies at the festival. So that was super helpful that they helped me find those, and I think it was also due in part to my advocacy for myself.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And I think that the takeaway from all of this, both within what you said on the panel and the story you just told, is that advocating for yourself is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't diminish your identity or who you are. It basically is just a reminder that you have self-awareness to identify when you need help. And, as we're communal beings, it's okay to ask for help, because the truth of the matter is, whether or not you have a disability, whether or not you're blind or sighted, we all need help at different points in time in life. And I think that's the beauty of humanity, is that we all are here to help each other. So, yeah, don't ever feel like advocating for yourself is something to be ashamed of or something that you can't do. I think that there's certain moments for all of us to be able to do that for ourselves.
I completely agree. And on that note, we will wrap up this episode of The Dark Room. But stay tuned for the next episode because we have our Oscars audio description roundtable for 2025. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we have a lot of really fun panelists this year. There's a few returning panelists from last year that will be on the roundtable, but also we're adding some new people into the mix. So that will be very exciting. So thank you guys so much for listening. And if you want to reach me or Alex, you can always email us at darkroomfilmcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's darkroomfilmcast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on Instagram at darkroomfilmcast and YouTube at darkroomfilmcast as well.
And yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. We actually got 2 listener emails in the last couple of days, and it was really, really great to hear from you guys. So keep reaching out. We absolutely love it. And we'd like to thank All Senses Go and Matt Lauterbach for making captions and transcriptions available for this episode, as well as Blindcam for funding the editing for this episode.
Well said. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening once again. And we'll see you here next time on The Dark Room.
Take care, guys.